So Paulo Costa has pulled out of another fight, this time with Ikram Aliskerov. That's right, the fight in which we were hyped to see for the past 2 months. And with this fight being off the card, even though there's a late replacement in Roman Dolidze, I don't care about Roman Dolidze and Ikram Aliskerov. Yes, it's going to be fun in and of itself. It's better than nothing. But I wanted Ikram and Costa because that's what we've been waiting for the past 2 months. And before you jump the gun and say, wait a second, Lucas, Paulo Costa may take another fight. The UFC may give him Khamzat Chimaev. That'll be even better. That's what we've been told for the past 1,000 years about Paulo Costa. He pulls out of a fight. Don't worry, the UFC has something in store that's even better. And then we're going to wait for another 3 months and have a whole other buildup, only to be let down again. I'm tired of this guy stringing us along for the ride, only to get disappointed. He has ducked more big matchups than anyone else in recent memory. This is the 3rd time this guy has pulled out of a big matchup. First, it was Jared Cannonier in 2020. Then it was Robert Whittaker earlier this year, and now it's against Ikram Aliskerov. And before you try to jump the gun and say, hold on, the UFC's got another matchup, don't worry, we're going to get something even better. He's going to come back in Abu Dhabi. Don't you understand? If he signs to fight in Abu Dhabi, he'll pull out again. And I'm just going to say it, dude. This guy's a liability to the company. He gets all the fans up in arms and excited, only to just let us down every goddamn time. And people have the nerve to call this guy the biggest Chad in the UFC, even though he has absolutely no integrity whatsoever. He never sticks to his word. He can pull out of 100 fights, and he'd still have all of you guys fooled into believing that he's a fucking boss. When in reality, maybe he is the biggest Chad in the UFC. You know what? If he can fool all of you guys into still rooting for him, but he ain't fooling me. All right? I'm tired of it. I don't give a fuck if he posts a bunch of memes on Instagram. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, I want to see him fight. All right? I don't care about waiting another 5 months to have him and Khamzat have a buildup for him only to pull out again. That's what's going to continue to happen. And if the UFC doesn't get him out of there right now, he's just going to continue to be a liability. This is a guy that you need to boot from your company. He's someone that sabotages cards. He's one of the main selling points of the pay-per-view UFC 291. He pulls out, all of a sudden everyone's pissed off. You can't keep letting this guy walk all over you, UFC. You got to get this motherfucker out of here. Boot him out, all right? And post him on the official Instagram as well with a clown nose on his face and let everyone know that he's the reason why this fight came out. He posted a meme about this fight a couple days ago on his Instagram, and I said to myself, there's no way he's pulling out if he's posting memes about pulling out. There's no way he would have the balls to do that. And he actually did. God damn it, dude. This sucks. I'm not even going to sit here and act like I'm all good with it. No, I ain't. All right? I don't want to see another buildup. He doesn't deserve to get any more hype from anyone. Just, man, how often are you going to let this guy fuck around with the fans and drag us along? He's a liability. He gets people super hyped about these cards. And if you're looking at UFC 291 now, it's not nearly as good as it was. Paulo Costa and Ikram Aliskerov, that was a huge fight. That's bigger than Bobby Green and Tony Ferguson. You know what I mean? That's bigger than Stephen Thompson and Michel Pereira. And you're going to sit here and tell me, bro, calm down. It's just one fight. It makes a huge difference because Paulo Costa was one of the main draws. Also, let's just talk about this guy's skill set because it's basically non-existent to begin with, all right? We may as well get to it. Paulo Costa is the biggest fraud in the UFC when it comes to his punching power. Everyone talks about Paulo Costa, this big, heavy puncher. Oh, I think he's going to knock him out. Oh, I think he's going to knock him out. Yeah, I picked him to knock out Luke Rockhold too, and he couldn't do it. Paulo Costa, as far as I'm concerned, has no punching power in his hands, and that's his whole mystique. That's everything that makes him an interesting fighter. He's the big, scary guy, the big puncher of the division. Well, the only thing fun about his fights is seeing him get his ass kicked because he has no sting at the end of those shots. When's the last time this guy's knocked anyone out? You can't name me a single moment because it doesn't exist. He's got a couple of measly TKOs up against the fence like he's Max Holloway with the pillow hands. If anything, Max Holloway hits harder than this guy and has more pound-for-pound power than Paulo Costa. You know, big, muscled-up juice head who can't even throw hard strikes. The whole pay-per-view has diminished significantly. If you don't think that's actually the case because only one fight's dropped off, All right, now remove Alex Pereira and Jan Blachowicz and tell me we have a stacked card. Some UFC fans would be foolish enough to continue to say the card is stacked after not only the co-main gets stripped away, but Tony Ferguson's off, Wonderboy's off, and now Derek Lewis is off. Oh, but it's so stacked because Dustin Poirier is still main eventing. I'm not going to get fooled into believing that this is stacked. This card went from being, I would say, a 9 out of 10, okay? A solid 9 out of 10. Now it's at an 8.2. Okay, it's still a good card, but it doesn't have the same name value. And I bet that some of you guys are listening to this and you're saying that I'm overreacting. The UFC shouldn't cut him, but I just view him as a liability. He provides zero value outside of creating a couple of laughs on social media. And in order to do that, you don't need to be signed by the UFC. He kind of reminds me of Dylan Dennis at this point. And one thing I'll have to say about Dylan Dennis is I don't mind Dylan Dennis because his whole thing is being a meme, right? His whole thing is creating laughs and pulling out of fights to piss people off and to be a nuisance. I actually think he's kind of funny. But because Costa's in the UFC and it's my favorite promotion and I get really excited for the fights, it actually pisses me off when he does it. Right? Because I get hyped for these pay-per-views and then he takes the fight away from us. If the UFC doesn't cut him, then the only logical explanation for that is due to the fact that he must have some kind of dirt on them. Otherwise, why the hell wouldn't they cut him at this point? He is taking away from the fans more than he is providing, right? And it's just useless to keep him on board. The UFC, make sure you do what you need to do. Now, when it comes to Ikram Aliskerov, and when it comes to Roman Dolidze, guys, I'm going to pick Ikram Aliskerov to win this fight because Roman Dolidze is a sloppy, one-dimensional man on the feet. Yes, he's got a lot of power in his hands. And to be fair, we have seen Ikram Aliskerov get KO'd before by Khamzat Chimaev. He got one-shotted with a lead uppercut from Khamzat way back in the day. So his chin isn't granite. And Roman Dolidze has had some vicious KOs in the UFC. Now, both of these guys have knocked out Phil Hawes. But as far as I'm concerned, Phil Hawes isn't the greatest litmus test to make me believe that you're a really high-level striker. The reason why I'm picking Ikram Aliskerov is because outside of the UFC, he's pretty much ragdolled everyone and finished them by submission or TKO on the ground. I know Roman Dolidze is a very high-level grappler, but on the feet, I've watched a little bit of Ikram Aliskerov's game. He's faster than Roman Dolidze. He has more tools than Roman Dolidze. He's a little bit heavier with his kicking game. And again, Roman Dolidze's really only got one weapon, and that's that right hand. And he was swinging and missing all night on Marvin Vettori. And of course, the only shots he landed on Vettori was the right hand. And that's big, sloppy Marvin Vettori. Of course, this is the guy that beat the bum Paulo Costa. But, you know, Marvin's not very good. He doesn't really have great head movement. We look at Ikram Aliskerov. Just with the eye test, I know that this guy's a better striker, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this fight. He's also a pretty big middleweight as well, and you could argue that Roman Dolidze is pretty much the same level of Paulo Costa, but I was going to pick Ikram to destroy Costa anyway. Once again, Costa doesn't actually have a lot of power in his hands. Name me a single KO from his entire career. You literally can't do it because it doesn't exist. His only TKOs are over Uriah Hall and over old man Johnny Hendricks. And he needed a 20-punch combination to even hurt them to begin with before even TKOing them. He has no power. He basically is the same pound-for-pound power as Max Holloway. If anything, Holloway hits even harder pound for pound. Just accept it. Just get it through your head. Paulo Costa, horrible cardio as well. So as far as I'm concerned, it's the same thing. He's basically on that Roman Dolidze level on the feet, and I'm going to go with Ikram Aliskerov to beat Roman Dolidze up. And I wouldn't be surprised if Dolidze has issues cutting weight. And you know what? Because of that, I wouldn't even be surprised if Roman Dolidze pulls out of this one because he's a massive middleweight. I think he's like 6'3". He's huge. I remember him facing off with Marvin Vettori, and Vettori's actually a pretty big middleweight. He looked huge compared to Marvin Vettori. So that's another worry that I have. What if he pulls out of this fight and we have no fight with Ikram Aliskerov and now he's totally off the card? You know, thank God we have a late notice opponent, but man, is this just really screwing everything up? It's time to cut Paulo Costa. It's time to boot him off of the roster. The experiment is up and it's over. All right. At one time, don't forget this, guys. This was a guy that was undefeated in the UFC that half of the fans thought was going to go out there and destroy Israel Adesanya. This is a guy that went tit for tat with Yoel Romero. All of a sudden, he gets destroyed by Izzy. His whole life has changed. His confidence is ruined, and he's just coping with something. I guess it must be the lack of confidence as to why he keeps pulling out of these fights and just never gets in the cage. He doesn't believe in himself, and it's actually sad to watch. So I hope Paulo Costa can turn things around in his personal life. He's still a funny guy on social media. Do I dislike him personally? Not really, but it's just, again, a sign of the lack of integrity for this guy to continue to sign fights and to pull out. So for that reason, he does not deserve to have a contract with the UFC. Boot him from the company 100%. I'm sure that most of you guys will agree. Until next time.
What's up, guys? It's Lucas Tracy MMA, and I'm wondering if you're trying to look like Yoel Romero. Well, if you don't have his genetics, that's impossible, but I could at least help you get halfway there with my ultimate lifting program, and if you're a beginner, my novice lifting program. These are programs that I've used my 9 years of experience in the gym to make so that you can put on as much muscle as possible in as little amount of time as possible. And it'll also give you a variety of workouts so that you never get tired of the gym. So if you're interested, click the link in my description. And for a discount, use code MMA for 30% off.